Now that the layout is complete, we can start implementing the actual backend functionality for the changes that we're going to make. So basically we'll want to separate the items as they're fetched into one of two possible lists, one of today's items or one of the previous day's items. So a good place to start would be to create a couple of lists to help us out rather than this one master list, and then we need to determine exactly how we want to separate the items out. So I'm just going to copy this and I'll change this to today's items list. And this can be just past items list. Okay. Now, there's a few ways in which we can go about achieving this task of separating. One would be to modify the database functions themselves so that we can have one database function call only today's items and one database function call all of the other items. But seeing as we're going to have to fetch all of the items anyway, I figure we might as well get them all at once, and then when we're assigning them to a to-do items list, we'll separate them then by determining what the date of that item is and seeing if it matches today's. So before we go any further, I do want to make a minor modification to our to-do item, and so we're also going to have to make a modification to to-do items adapter. So the problem here is that when we're setting our date text view, we're getting the date as a string, or rather we're calling on this getDate as a string function, but that is going to get the date as soon as that object is created. It's not actually going to get the date at which that object was saved. So the way that the calendar.get instance works is that this is going to get the current date and current time when this calendar.get instance is called. That means that even if we created this to-do item, let's say 5 days ago, so its date was 5 days ago, but we created it today, well, that date is going to be today's date rather than 5 days ago. So I'm just going to create another variable here, which is going to be something like date string, okay, and this is going to be of type string. So we'll set this by default as a call to our function getDate as a string, but because it's a variable and it's not private or anything, we'll have the ability to manually change this date, and we're going to have to do that when we call upon, or rather when we fetch all of our items, we can just set the date then and there. So in our to-do items adapter, rather than calling on the getDate as a string function, we're actually just going to call on the date string variable, so this way we can actually change that date string as it is. Also, we want to make sure that we're getting the to-do items list, not of necessarily the activity, because there are going to be multiple lists associated with this. So we're actually just going to get rid of the activity dot to-do items list in these calls. Okay, and so we should be getting the to-do items list that belongs to this class. If you wanted to be explicit, you could say this dot to-do items list, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, good stuff. So let's head on back to main activity. And now we're actually not going to be dealing with our whole to-do list. Well, there's a couple of ways in which we can go about doing this yet again. So if you want, you can display all the items in the master list as soon as the app loads up, and then have the separation when the user presses on the buttons, or you can have only today's items displayed by default, and in that case, you actually wouldn't feed them into this master to-do items list. I think what I personally would rather do is actually load and display all the items once the app loads up, and then the user can press either today or yesterday, or I guess previous items, to display those two different dates there, or two different lists. Okay, so we're still going to add everything to our to-do items master list, but we'll also separate them out into today's and past items list. Now again, that separation is based on the date of the item, so we're actually going to have to get the date through our date string, but the comparison is made through a function similar to this. So just for convenience sake, I'm actually going to grab this and put it in the main activity, and we're going to have to import calendar, that's fine, and we'll make some minor modifications to this. So what we'll want to do is get the date at the time this function was called. So we're going to have to call upon the calendar.get instance. We'll create a dates variable equal to, again, calendar.get instance, so that we can get today's date rather than the date at which the item was created. Now keep in mind, each of the dates is being stored as a string of this format, so we can just get the date of the item as it was saved. In fact, let's just copy this, and we'll say something like item date is equal to get string. Now this isn't an integer, this is a string, and we want to get the column item date. Okay, we can then compare this item date with a call to get date as a string, and if they match up, then we know that this is today an item that belongs in today's list. We're also not taking the time into account, by the way, so this will just go based on year, month, and day. So what we'll do is say something along the lines of, we'll still add it to the master to-do items list, then we're going to perform this check. So we'll say something like, if our item date is equal to a call to get the date as a string. In this case, we're going to put it in today's items list. So we're going to say today's item list dot add, okay? And otherwise, we're going to add it to the other items list, so past items list. Now, we're going to have to set each of these to-do items dates like this, otherwise it's just going to get today's date. So we're going to have to create a new to-do item, and so we'll say something like new to-do item is going to be equal to a new to-do item, and again we're going to feed in the item name is urgent, and then we'll just set the date manually. So we'll say new to-do items dot date string is going to be equal to item date. And that way we're kind of overriding the default implementation. So in here we'll still add it to the master list, to-do items list, and then we'll just pick whether we want to add it to this one or this one. We can actually just copy this code here. So we'll add it to today's item list if the date matches. Otherwise we'll add it to the previous day's items list. Now by default, we're setting our items adapter down here, but we'll want to change that adapter in our display today's or display past items functions. So for our sakes and purposes, we can actually just take this code and we can, let's go actually from here downwards. We can just copy this and we're just going to paste it right in. So rather than passing in to-do items list, we're going to pass in obviously today's items list because that's the function we're in. So today's items list, whereas in here we'll pass in the past items list. And this should auto update our views. So I can't remember if we have any items saved in the database right now. Let's go ahead and test this out to see if it's working properly. We'll give this a save. We'll give this a run through. I already have a device started up, so make sure you have one. I'm just going to pause this until it finishes loading, so I'll be back in a second. Alright, and I guess we actually don't have any items in our master list here. And you can see this is kind of messed up. I think this is just a problem with the font size, so let's just actually fix that right now before we go to do anything else. So now our activity main, and we'll just decrease that font size a little bit. This is viewed on Nexus 4, this is why things are kind of going a little weird, so let's view it on the test device. So you can see there is the problem right there. So this was on our second button. Let's actually just change these down to 15 and 15. It should be plenty big enough. Okay, so we'll change that, and let's just ignore the problem there for now. So let's just add an item or two. Just again, we'll go with groceries or something. Okay, we're not going to make that urgent. We'll give this a save and a cancel. Let's head on back. Okay, we have groceries. It's giving us the date at which we saved this. Again, we can create another item. So let's just go to add an item. Let's just do like laundry or something. Okay, let's say we really need to do laundry. Let's make that urgent, and we'll give this a save. Okay, so it's urgent. Now let's try loading our previous items. So note that there's nothing showing up. Obviously we didn't have any previous items saved. Probably should have saved an item or two, but nothing is showing up in that list. However, today's items show up. So if you do save some items and then go to load it to the next date, then you'll see that these changes should be reflected. So you get all the items that you didn't complete here, and then all the items that you still have to complete today in today's items list. And just like before, you can easily delete items. So just get rid of them here, just reloads the list. And yeah, so again, you'll not see those changes reflected right away. But if you notice, there was actually a problem with the coloring when we went to add an item. This is all white, so we'll probably want this to reflect the same color as this. In fact, I don't think I have a background color to represent that set right now. So I'm actually just going to create a background color in our colors file. So let's just copy this and paste it. The name is going to be something like background. Let's just call this background color, or maybe capitalize that C. Okay, and I'm just going to copy what I had here, kind of like that greenish blue kind of color. We'll just paste it there. Okay, so I'll set the background color here. So what I can do is just say @color And we're going to go with background color, and we'll do the same in our add item activity. So that's actually this guy. So let's just copy and paste that. And by the way, if you do want each item to have a specific color, like you want a different color to what the background is, you can absolutely set that in your to-do item layout. So what you do is you just set the background color here, and these other elements would take on that default color as well. Now, there was one other major thing that I wanted to change when it came to the view here, and that's the fact that I don't actually know which of these lists is being displayed. I mean, I could look at the date and then look at today's date, but rather than just doing that, I'd actually like to have the black background, white text, when it's selected, and then the white background and black text when it's not selected. So I just kind of want these to switch back and forth. So what I can do in my activity main is connect my two buttons, or main activity. I don't think I have those two buttons connected, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect those two buttons, and then when we trigger these functions, I'm just going to change those background colors. So what I'm actually going to do is try and get you guys to figure out how to do that. It should be fairly simple. Again, you'll just need to create variables to represent those two buttons. We actually have those colors already saved in our colors file. We have a pure black and a pure white. So just figure out how to set the text background, or rather the text color, to either white or black, and then the background color again to either white or black respectively, to trigger the appearance change when the user selects one of those two buttons. So go right ahead. Again, pause it now, and I'll show you my solution in a few seconds here. Alright, and this is kind of the solution I've came up with. I just created those buttons up here. So I have, oh wait, no, these are the buttons up here. Today's and past items buttons. I initialized them in our onCreate function. I just put them down here. And then in our two functions, displaying today's items and displaying the past items, I'm setting the respective background colors and text colors. So when today's item is selected, I'm setting our today's items buttons background to black and then text to white, and vice versa for past items button, and then I'm just doing the reverse thing in display past items. So let's give this one final look through, and actually before we do, there's just one last thing. If we go to our activity, no, not the activity add item, we want the to-do items adapter. You see where we're, oh actually no, this is in the add item activity. You see where we are saving our item. It's kind of annoying to have to save the item and then press cancel to navigate back. So let's actually just automatically nav ourselves back once the item is saved. Okay, so we're just going to put that in there, and then we'll go ahead and give this another run through. So this should now save the item and automatically nav us back as well. So if all goes well here, then we should be completely done with this app, and then we can move on to the summary section, which we'll do right at the very end. So let's load up that simulator or emulator. As you can see, looking pretty good. We can now more easily tell which of the two is selected. Okay. Now let's say we want to add an item. Let's say we wanted to, I don't know, maybe go to the gym or something. So go to the gym. Okay, we're not going to make this urgent, but let's save it. It'll now automatically navigate us back. Okay, so that's pretty much all I wanted to do for the other improvements. And at this point, our app is fully complete and ready for us to use. In fact, I sometimes use something a little similar to this. It's a little more complex, but it's just a nice way to kind of organize my day. And even if you guys don't end up using this on your own devices, at least you'll have this on your portfolio, and you can expand upon it and just generally understand the whole Android app development process. So just to quickly summarize what we did in this section, and then we can head on over to the last section. We implemented in our main activity, our display today's and the past items. And basically we did this by choosing which of the two to-do items lists we're going to be displaying. So we have today's items, and then we have the past items list. We're filtering those in our cursor fetching. So basically when we get the items, we're getting the date, and then we're comparing the dates to see if the date matches today's. If it does, we're putting it today's items. If not, then we put it in the previous items. We made some minor modifications to our to-do adapter. So modifications were down here, and then just every time we were getting the to-do items list, we changed that from activity to this to-do items list. Then we made some changes in our activity main, just added a color, and then actually that's pretty much all we did in activity main. In our, which one was it? Our activity add item, we changed the background color to reflect that change that we wanted. Also, in our add item activity, we just started the intent and navigated ourselves back to main activity when the user presses the save item action, just so that they don't have to press the cancel button to nav back. It just does it automatically. Okay, so pretty good. This app is completely finished. That is all the changes that I wanted to make to it. Again, I'm going to do a summary of the entire week, everything that we've done so far, in this section coming right up. So do stay tuned for that. Otherwise, that is all the code we're going to write, and the app is complete and good to go.